There's a bit of a logjam in BMW's lineup of little crossovers. Not that it's having a hard time selling them, but picking which one makes sense for you isn't as straightforward as it could be. So let's say you want something that's practical but also has a bit of a performance bent. Sure, you could go with an X3M, but that's a lot of vehicle, not to mention a lot of money. Now my solution, it's a hell of a lot more affordable, and this is it, the 2024 BMW X1 M35i. No, it isn't a full-fledged M vehicle, but it has more than enough of a wild side, and all without compromising when it's time for everyday tasks. For more expert car reviews, don't forget to share our channel and subscribe so you can catch some of this and maybe even a little of that. Well guys, we made it out of the winter weather, but you can never quite predict what's going to happen in spring, and here we are, perfectly fine shoot all day long until right now. Tons of rain, did not see this coming, so anyways, my apologies, but on the bright side, at least you got to see all Will's beautiful shots of the exterior of this thing, which looks pretty damn good. I really do like it. I also cannot get over just how massive this thing feels in here. All week long, I've been questioning why the X3 even exists. M version notwithstanding, don't get me wrong, that thing is cool, but sitting in here, I see no point in buying that X3, because if you need more space than this, you should go all the way up to the X5. I mean, shoulder width is awesome, headroom, unbelievable. I just can't get over it. And also, the seats don't feel like they're bolted too low to the ground. I don't feel really kind of awkward, like there's cheap tricks to maximize the space. I think BMW's designers and engineers have done a really good job here, and the same applies to the cargo area that's barely smaller than the X3s. This new X1 is awesome, and you know, that's all the stuff that applies to the kind of regular X1 that Jody reviewed not too long ago, the standard version. So if you don't care about performance, well, you can stick to that thing, or at the very least, go and watch Jody's review of that xDrive 28i. But if you do care about performance, well, this is the one you want. Now, it has the same turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder under the hood. Unfortunately, it makes the same 295 pound-feet of torque. Now, don't get me wrong, that is a decent number, but it's nothing to brag about. If you want to show off to your friends about the performance capabilities of your crossover, to know that the torque figure is the same as the regular version, well, I guess it's nothing to get excited about. But the 312 horsepower that this thing makes is, and so is the way it all comes together. Now, like I said, it's raining, but I mean, this thing sounds great. Not just the artificial sounds that BMW has programmed into this, but the exhaust is unbelievable. I do want to talk about one of my favorite features, and that's this Sport Boost mode. So you pull on this left side steering wheel paddle for over a second. That's all it takes, because if you only tap it, that'll just downshift. If you kind of pull and hold it, it activates this Sport Boost mode. It gives you 10 seconds of fully uncorked powertrain and chassis dynamics. Everything gets amped up. So if you need a little more passing power, or you're just looking to have a little bit of fun, but you only want a short burst of it, well, you can go ahead and do it that way. And you get this little countdown in the instrument display, so you know just how much time you have left. If that's not enough for you, well, you can use this drive mode button down here on the console and pull up your sport mode or your individual mode, program it with the parameters that you want. I do like that a lot. I also like that there's more than just some engine tuning here. There's an adaptive damper system. There's a limited slip front differential, so there's no torque steer to worry about. Yes, that does happen. This is a front-wheel drive-based all-wheel drive system that could have a tendency to pull in one direction or the other, but having that transmission integrated LSD is awesome because it keeps you moving in a straight line when you really get your foot down. And once again, that is a big part of the fun here. Now, BMW says this thing will do the 0 to 100 km/h dash in about 5.4 seconds, so a little more than a second slower than the X3M. That's pretty negligible if you ask me, especially because of just how usable this thing is. It doesn't feel like a monster. It feels nice and contained. It also feels very daily driver friendly, and that to me is way more important than some super powerful crossover. As cool as the X3M is, it is a lot of vehicle, and it feels like you really need to get your foot into it to make the most of it, and that is not the case here. You know, because it doesn't have as much output, because it's not quite as extreme, you can tap into the performance potential of this thing without going all the way overboard, and that is pretty cool. This thing's also reasonably efficient for what it is. It's officially rated for 9 liters per 100 kilometers combined, which I think is decent for a crossover this size with all-wheel drive. You guys know the deal. That's right in line with premium and mainstream crossovers this size. But what's really cool is how easy it is to overachieve. Earlier this week, I was down at 8 liters per 100 kilometers. Yeah, it's gotten a little bit worse since I've been having a little bit more fun, but I'm still only at about 8.6 liters per 100 kilometers right now, which is an impressive number, again, considering the performance potential mixed with the practicality here. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're having fun on a winding back road or you're out on the highway and you need to pass. This 7-speed dual clutch automatic transmission is awesome. It is so quick to downshift. It really does anticipate what you're doing. Just tip into the throttle, it drops a gear, and that is great in combination with that sport boost mode if you need to get around slower traffic on the highway. That is super cool. And even though I talked about how big this thing feels from the driver's seat in terms of space in here, it does not feel big from behind the wheel when you are hustling it through a corner. There's really not much body roll to worry about. It does not feel as tall and upright as it actually is. Maybe not quite hatchback feel here, but something pretty close. The chassis engineering here is just about perfect. I really do dig it. And again, the duality of it is really what does it for me. I think this version of the X1 looks great, especially in this shade of blue Bay Lagoon paint. It works really well with all the black accents and angles, gives this thing proper presence without going overboard, and that I love. Now, there is a subtle hint back here that I may be onto something with my guess about this being it for the X1 performance models. Just take a look. I'm talking about the quad exhaust back here. This is something that BMW usually reserves for the highest performing versions of each of its models. Seeing this here tells me that this is it for the X1. Again, not a bad thing, just something worth pointing out. Something else I want to point out. If you only spring for one upgrade here, let it be the M Sport Pro package. Yes, it gives it a few exterior upgrades, but more importantly, these sport seats that it comes with are just awesome. They give this thing the look and feel it deserves inside. Now, as far as the basics go, I do find the X1 to be pretty approachable overall. Even this infotainment interface that I know Jody doesn't love. You guys just saw her X2 review. She wasn't crazy about it. I'm not that troubled with it. It does take a little bit of time to get the hang of it, but not too bad. It also has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto integration. And one thing I really like is the way this home button toggles between a home button or a shortcut to those smartphone interfaces, depending on what you have up on the screen. So if you tap the home button and you're on the home screen, well, then it turns to a CarPlay button because I have my iPhone hooked up, so I can quickly toggle back to that screen. And I really do like that. Something I like even less, this drive related stuff. Down here on this console, there's no proper park button. That to me is very odd. This is one of those things, reinventing the wheel, that I don't understand why automakers do. So you either hit this parking brake or you shut the engine off entirely. That's how you kind of put it into park. But you know, all things considered, those flaws aren't exactly egregious, and none of them take away from what I think is a pretty flawlessly executed crossover overall. Really do like this thing a lot more than I thought I would. To recap, I like the well-rounded performance the X1 M35i offers, how spacious it is inside, and the way it looks. I don't like the infotainment and drive-related interfaces, or that it's maybe a little expensive, especially once you start adding options and extras. Okay, in fairness, the starting price here is actually a little less than its closest competitors, and that is the AMG tuned version of the Mercedes GLA class, but that doesn't totally excuse the asking price. And in fairness, it's not too far beyond what's reasonable, but this is a $12,000 jump over the base X1, and that is quite a bit of cash. And then when you factor in options and extras, well, this one I'm driving, it's $70,000 before tax. That's a lot of money for a little crossover. Either way, this thing is fun to drive when you want it to be, and all without losing the practicality and usefulness that comes with a crossover like this, and that's the kind of combination I can get behind.